Well, that was unexpected. Greetings and welcome once again to Roman of the Empire. I am your host, Roman. Today we are going to be looking at The Last of Us Episode 1, When You're Lost in the Darkness. I gotta say, I wasn't gonna review the show because I'd heard a lot of my counterparts out there really not digging it. But I never played the game. I don't have those kind of the what I think the show should be based on the gameplay in my head because it's not there. I never played it. But then I saw a couple of other folks out there who did dig the show, who I respect out there in the YouTube realm. And the daughter of the Empire called and said, Dad, I think you're going to like this. I'm like, oh, I don't know. She's like, check it out. So I checked it out. I liked it. I thought it was a good show. I might get beat up about that, but I'm not going to say I didn't like something that I did like. I like the way the show looks. I like the pacing of the show. The funny thing that I don't like about the show, I don't like Ellie. I know she's like the girl who is the key to everything, as they say. She reminds me of that Greta Thunberg creature, and I'm not fond of her either. So I mean, maybe there's just that tie-in, but she comes off as brash, annoying. She's not plucky. She's one of those irritating, know-it-all, just bad attitude kids. I don't like her, and I know, and I hopefully that that doesn't remain the case, as she is the key, kind of plot point to the show. But I liked pedropascal as Joel. I thought he was good. I like pedropascal as an actor. I don't like him necessarily as a person. He says a lot of things that irritate me. But as an actor, I think he's good. I haven't seen him really in anything that I don't like him in. So there's that. And we got to see Anna Torv from one of my favorite shows, Fringe. She is also on this, and she did a great job. She is currently, I would say Joel's female lead. I don't know how long she lasts in the show. That's one of the things I will say about the show is don't get used to folks. They do a nice job in the first episode of moving through timelines from 1968 to 2003, which is the whoa, everything changes year. Then moving forward to the present after it's not a virus, it's a fungus, has devastated humanity. But again, I thought it was an enjoyable watch. So, shoot me, infect me with the fungus. That didn't sound right when I said it, and I immediately regret it. So what I am going to do is I'm going to walk you through the show. So there's going to be spoilers here. But I wanted to get my initial, I saw it and I liked it out there. And then I'm sure you'll comment as to why you disagree with me, or maybe you agree with me. Maybe you liked it as well. But like I said, it was a fun watch. Reminded me, as not surprisingly, of the early days of watching Walking Dead and that kind of vibe. So there you go. So now we're gonna walk through the show a bit, just to break down the bits and pieces. And that'll be it. So it starts off in 1968. We're watching a talk show, which they used to have, and they used to have interesting guests on them. And it's two scientists. One of them is talking about a pandemic. And the other is less worried about that kind of thing, like a bacterial or, viral thing. Dr. Newman is his name. He's worried about fungus. And the audience laughs, ha, it's very funny. And then he describes, these certain fungi that take over a host, primarily insect is what he's talking about, and then they control it. And this is actually, I mean, this is a real thing. And they help prevent, and then they start consuming the host, but they don't let the host die. They, penicillin also from a fungus, they prevent it from decomposing. So it basically can linger on and infect others. And he talks about, and this is one of the messages that irritates me, if it goes back to the Greta Thunberg thing, that the fungal infection couldn't survive in humans because of our temperature, but if the overall temperature of the earth rose, that would change the dynamic of everything, and then the fungus could take over humans, and it would drive, an infection or spreading of the fungus to the entire population. And everybody in the audience gets really quiet, and they're like, wow, this is no longer funny. And the host asks, he's like, well, what happens then? And the doc's like, we lose. And then flash forward. 2003, well, actually, 2000, I want to talk about 1968, just real brief. That's also when George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead premiered. Without Night of the Living Dead, you don't get something like, well, certainly don't get The Walking Dead, but you don't get anything like the Last of Us either. That was the key. So that's kind of a nice throwback to that. So 2003, and you're seeing the hints back to that era, who's the president, just, political events of the time. And you meet Joel. He is, I think he's construction. He's got a daughter, Sarah. And a lot of the beginning parts of the show are from Sarah's perspective. And it's Joel's birthday. She wanted to make him pancakes. He doesn't want pancakes. His brother shows up during breakfast, so you meet Tommy. Tommy, sorry. And, it's just kind of a normal morning. You see Sarah going through Joel's drawer. She takes an old watch of his that's broken, takes some money so she can get it fixed. And again, just kind of following her through her day. She goes off to school. She's out. She's getting the watch fixed. And as through Sarah's eyes, you're seeing a lot of things. You're seeing a lot of police activity. You're seeing military aircraft fly over the city. But remember, this is 2003. The internet is newer anyway. Cell phones, smartphones don't exist yet. You have regular old cell phones back then. So information didn't spread as rapidly. So while she's getting the watch fixed, the wife of the shop owner, she's like, we got to close the shop. He's like, what are you talking about? We don't close till 7. It's only 3. And she's like, we got to close right now. And so he fixes the watch. He gives it to the girl, and she shuffles her off. And now Sarah's like, man, what's up? So she goes home, and she's talking to, hanging out with her neighbors, the Adlers, making cookies. And she asked Mrs. Adler, she said, is there anything on the news? And Mrs. Adler has no idea what's going on. Now, Sarah's picking out a movie for her dad to watch. And in the background, you see Mrs. Adler's mom. She's an old woman. She's just confined to a wheelchair. She doesn't move around a lot. You see her going through this strange motions in the back. And of course, Sarah's back's to her. It's a very disturbing scene. And as Sarah's getting ready to leave, the Adler's dog has just got this look, and he's staring at the old lady. That look that dogs have, that something's not right look. Trust the dog. Always trust the dog. That should be the theme of almost any of these shows. So she goes back. Joel doesn't get home till late. He doesn't buy a cake. She gives him the watch. They watch like a kung fu movie or something. And she goes to sleep. And then Joel's brother calls Tommy. He's in trouble. Somebody started freaking out at a bar, and then he has to go get him. So he's gone. Sarah wakes up. There's these explosions and stuff. And she's like, what the hell? She gets up. Her dad's not home. So she's wandering around, and while she's downstairs, the Adler's dog pops up on the window, freaking out, and she's like, "Uh-oh." So she goes to take the dog home and finds some grim discoveries. Mr. Adler's just bleeding out in the kitchen, and then she turns over, and the old lady, who's not moved, she's in the wheelchair, is consuming Mrs. Adler. And the zombie effect here is, I'm going to call it the zombie effect for lack of a better term, is creepy. They do it. It's a neat change up, because we're talking about a genre that has been around for a little bit, and this is a different look at it. So I find that refreshing as well. So now, zombie old lady gets up, and she's going after Sarah, and she runs outside just in time for Joel and Tommy to pull up. Now they are already freaked out. Joel's got a wrench. He's like, "Get down," and he whacks the old broad on the head with a wrench, and down she goes. And this is clearly a beginning of, the bad things to come. So they're trying to get out of the city. Things are crowded, all the overrun stuff. And then there's a plane goes down. There's a terrible explosion. The car overturns. Sarah's messed up her ankle, and they're scrambling to get out. And he's got to carry her. Tommy, they get separated. There's the critters are chasing him. He comes out, and there's a shot, and it takes down the creature that's chasing them. But now they're face to face with a soldier, and he's getting orders. And he's like, "I'm sorry, what?" And basically he's like, "Oh, okay." And he turns the gun on Joel and Sarah. And Joel's like, "We're not infected. We're not infected." And he lets loose with a burst from the machine gun. Just, as Tommy pops up to shoot him. But then bad things happen. It's some sad events occur, and it's surprising. It took me by surprise when it happened. So don't get used to people is one of the things about this show. We jump forward to 2023, or the present, and we're following. It's a child. I don't know how old, probably 9, 10, around there. I think it's a girl child, longish hair, but it's the apocalypse, so yeah, who knows. Taped together shoes, just wandering through the woods, and then emerging to an entry to Boston, which is now, it's post-apocalyptic Boston. So the federal police are basically running things, setting up the camps, controlling the cities. So the kid goes into like an entry, point where they bring new people in so they can check them out and make sure they're all right. And the kid is in a chair strapped down, and a very nice lady is saying, "That's so you don't fall out because we know you're weak." And she's just talking very gently and nicely. And then another officer comes up and scans, and you can see red. Now, you can make assumptions from that. And she's saying, "Oh, you're as soon as you come inside, you'll be able to have all your favorite foods and play with all the toys. And the officer's going to give you some medicine, and then everything's going to be okay." And, man, it played out in a kind of scary real life kind of way. Because you're trying not to freak the kid out, but knowing there's something that's going to have to be done. So we move into the city, and there are workers throwing bodies into a burn pit. It's, this is not really unexpected. So it's just citizens basically doing jobs. And we see Joel again. He's now 20 years older, working the burn pits. Ask for a different job the next day because they just kind of rotate through whatever, they have sewage patrol or, whatever other kind of things that need to be done. And that's how they get credits for food or whatever. Joel on the side is selling drugs, weapons, whatever. He's a smuggler. That's kind of his thing. And we do see that he's still wearing the watch that Sarah had fixed for him. It's damaged again, of course, but now we meet Joel's partner. We don't really know who she is yet, but this is Tess, who is played by Anna Torv. She's been beat up, and she's talking to some jackass, Robert, saying, "Oh, I didn't mean, we weren't going to rip you off. We weren't going to rip you off. There's been some confusion." She was getting a battery for Joel, who needs to go find Tommy. Tommy has gone missing. He went out on whatever, and they haven't heard from him again. And so we need a battery for a vehicle, and this was the deal she was setting up, and Robert is changing the deal. And his thugs beat the crap out of Tess. And Tess is like, "Look, we'll just, you know what, it was a misunderstanding, it's fine." And Robert's like, "Yeah, but what about your guy? He knows who Joel is, and he's clearly terrified of him." There's an explosion. Tess is able to get out through the wall, but then she gets detained by the feds for a little bit. They think she's a firefly. Now, fireflies are, I'm going to call them a terrorist group. They're an insurgent group. They don't like the federal control of things. Now, I got my own thoughts on that. I mean, this is a really rough situation because they want democracy. You know what? I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That's not necessarily the best course of action in a post-apocalyptic, zombie-infested future. There's not a lot of good options, frankly, but a central authority is probably your best course. You know, whatever. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. But just, you can't have the people left to their own devices. The people. Mob rule isn't the way to go either. So there's got to be somewhere in between. But the Fireflies aren't happy with the way things are going, I guess, is where we go from there. Okay, so explosion. And then Tess comes, shows up like the next. She makes her way home. But then we'll actually, we need to backtrack just a second. We meet Ellie now. So we don't know who she is. She's a little girl in a room being held by the Fireflies. And they come in, they question her to see, we don't exactly know why they're doing this. They're making her count, what's her name, all that stuff, and she's clearly annoyed by all of this. And she's been there for a little bit. I think it's been 2 weeks. And their leader, Marlene, I'm sorry, is keeping her for a reason. And her people are kind of freaked out about it. But then she sits down with Ellie, and we don't know exactly what she tells her. But she's like, she's like, all right. And she takes her handcuffs off, and she's like, "I'm going to tell you something, but if you tell anybody else, I'm going to kill you." Okay, cool. We're back with Joel and Tess. She tells him about the incident with the battery, and they're going to go, and they're clearly pissed, they're going to go try to retrieve the battery from the deal that Robert made. And we don't, what it is Robert was going to sell the battery to Marlene and her group. Joel and Tess go in the underground. They're making their way. They have to go through, obviously, what is a quarantine zone to get to where this deal was going down. We see some good imagery here. It's one of the fungus zombies that's been there for a while, and the fungus has just exploded through the body. It's a really neat looking scene. But they emerge and they see Robert's been shot. This is, a shootout's happened because there's obviously going to be a betrayal. And then you see the kid, Ellie, and then Marlene shows up. She's been shot. It's just a big bloody mess. She was going to take Ellie out, but now she's damaged. She can't do it. So they make a deal with Joel and Tess to get Ellie out of the city. Joel doesn't want to do it. He has no desire to do this. They need to get out, and they need to turn Ellie over to, another Firefly group to get her out west. Why is this? We still don't know the why, but you suspect why, and if you played the game, obviously you know why. So they're waiting to leave the city because they need to wait for dark. You don't do this kind of stuff during the daytime. And Ellie stumbles across. Joel has a book of 80s songs, or of number ones, hits or something. But there's a code inside, basically talking about, if it's music from the 60s, everything's okay. Or, it's like, it's a code, it's a warning code. And we get to the 80s, and turns out the 80s is something has gone wildly wrong. It's, creepy. So now they make their escape. They're going out, popping outside of Boston through some underground tunnels. There's, helicopters and vehicles and all the stuff, trying to keep the city safe, essentially. But the people really are prisoners there, because if you get out, you can get infected. If you get infected, you're going to spread it. It's that kind of thing. It's not great, but it is what it is. So as they're making their way out, they run into a guard who Joel was dealing with earlier on, selling them drugs, so you know who he is. And he's doing the checks on them. And then the kid pulls a knife on him. They scramble around, woo, and he's got his gun trained on them. And this goes back to the scene earlier with Joel's daughter. And Joel basically flashes back to that moment. He's not going to let those events repeat themselves, so he rushes the guard, and then I think he beats him to death. If he doesn't beat him to death, he certainly comes close to it. Then we're getting ready to leave, and Tess sees that the scanner that was put on Ellie shows red. She's infected. And she shows her arm, and you can see these lines in the arm, and so she's got it. And she's trying to explain, I've got it, but I'm not sick. I'm not sick. I'm not sick. And then they're kind of forced to exit, because people are coming. So she is the medical miracle. She has the infection, but it's not spreading the infection. So they need to, that's why they wanted to take her out. They need to see what's up with this kid. And we leave off going back to the apartments, and the radio comes on, and it plays Depeche Mode's Never Let Me Down. 80s music. Something is wrong. We don't know what the something is. It was a good episode. A lot happened, clearly. And like I said, I like the pace of the show. Ellie is kind of a pain in the ass, though. I like Tess. I like Anna Torv. It's nice to see her again. And she, I think, is really kind of Joel's moral compass. He's pissed off and rightfully so, and jaded from these events, like a lot of the population is. He's a fighter, and she is, like I said, helps him, and I don't think it's a bad way. I know people will say that strong female character, and she is, but I don't think it's at the diminishment of the male character. That's my opinion. Anyway, that's it for now. I wanted to wrap this up, but it was a good episode for me. I didn't play the game. Game players will probably have a different perspective. Maybe they won't. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I am curious to hear what you have to say about this same show, because there's a lot of different opinions out there about this. So for now, this has been Roman of the Empire signing off. Please like and subscribe to the channel, because we really do need it. And please be kind.